Welcome into Starting Five here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. We'll start to do more of these here as we go forward. We got Manny Chang as our producer today, so we appreciate you doing this. If you get any comments up, we'll try to get them up here on the board, try to make them respectful. I certainly understand if you're not in the mood. We'll talk Heat as we go forward in the rest of the week. Of course, tonight we've got Five on the Floor will be back because the Heat hosts the Houston Rockets. No Jimmy Butler again tonight. And again, we'll get into more of that. And there should be a new episode of Five on the Floor about Kevin Love that should post here on the YouTube channel shortly. But right now, it's about the Dolphins. And I know you guys don't really want to all talk about this on a Monday after what happened last night. The Dolphins lose 21-14 to the Buffalo Bills at home. Had opportunities to win that game, but we've said that about many of the games that they've lost against better teams this year. Now 1-5 against teams that are in the playoffs. Dallas is the only exception. Of course, that came down to the final possession and a field goal. In this case, they needed a touchdown. Tua threw an interception on what looked like a broken route by Chase Claypool, but I know that most are not going to give Tua the benefit of the doubt for that. And honestly, at this point, it's hard for me to defend him with some of the play against better teams late in games. And we'll get into that more as we go forward. And Soap 305 has hit on it. Damn it. I want to start here, okay? I've gotten on Dolphin fans for being defeatist, even though I understand why they're defeatist. I get it, okay? And again, with my history, I don't think people really understand. I covered the Dolphins exclusively for years. When I was, well, I wouldn't say exclusively, but I was primarily, okay, when I was not covering the Heat on a day-to-day basis. I actually started in this business in 1997. 1996 was my first year with the Palm Beach Post, and I was a backup covering the Florida Panthers and Miami Heat. That was my first gig at the Palm Beach Post back when I was young, when I was 23. And actually, the other person who was the backup at that time for those two teams was Rachel Alexander, who later became Rachel Nichols. So that's kind of how I started. And then in 1997, I got the Dolphins job as the primary beat guy for the Palm Beach Post. And actually, at the time, I think I was the youngest beat writer on an NFL team in the country. And that's the team that I covered in 97, going all the way back to, Jimmy Johnson's, I guess it would be second year with the Dolphins. And then I was switched, covered the Heat for a bit, went back to the Dolphins primarily, was a columnist. It was a little bit more Dolphins than Heat. So for those who say stick to basketball, which I got a lot of that last night because people were frustrated, I primarily was covering football in South Florida until I made the change to basketball, exclusively starting in about 2010 when the Palm Beach Post hired me back to cover LeBron and the Big Three. So I've been around this franchise long enough to recognize and understand your frustration. I mean, I covered the Wannstedt era when there was tons of talent on that defense and they deserved better, but they did not have a complementary offense, or at least a coach who understood how to coach offense. And so those teams always disappointed. There was great expectations for them in a couple of those years. Particularly, I would go back to 2002, where they started 5-1, and I was in Denver with them when they won 24-22, and Linda Murray kicked the field goal at the end of the game. And then we got downstairs, and what did we see? We saw Jay Fiedler, Rondé Gadsden, and Chris Chambers all going to the medical room. And if you remember, Jay missed 6 games. They lost 4 of them with Ray Lucas. Rondé Gadsden had an injury that became a whole issue that whole year, and Chris Chambers was never the same after his concussion. I mean, that's the history that I know about. And that history, just that 1 year, is old enough to drink. That was 21 years ago. Okay. Now, actually, I guess you can make it 24 now that we've moved into or 22 years ago now that we've moved into 2024. So I get it. Okay. I get it. I've covered very few moments of exhilaration with this franchise. I go back to 2008 when I was at the Meadowlands and Chad Pennington beat Brett Favre on the last day of the season. That was one of the happiest locker rooms I've ever been in. Okay. But again, few and far between. That's 15 years ago. They haven't won a playoff game since December 30th, 2000. And now they're not positioned to win this one. So I understand. Okay. And I understand why everybody is defeatist going into next week. And look, the odds makers, I don't even think have caught up to this because they have them. They have the Chiefs as a 3 to 3.5 point favorite right now. Boy, I'd hit that. Okay. I mean, play it on our friends at Better Edge. I'll tell you about prize picks here in a second. But I would absolutely hit that because, I mean, the Dolphins in 2-degree weather, I mean, because that's what they're looking at. That's the forecast. And I've been in Kansas City, the coldest I've ever been in my life. Okay. And I grew up in New York. Coldest I've ever felt in my life was Toronto All-Star game for the NBA, which I believe was 2016, where we couldn't go outside. We had to go through the tunnels to get to everywhere because literally you could not go outside. Okay. And Kansas City, I remember being with my friend Israel Gutierrez there covering that game. And we tried to go find dinner the night before and just gave up. We're like, we're just going to both go back and order room service because it was insanely cold. And that's what it's going to be on Saturday night. And so would I take the Dolphins +3? No. Okay. So I understand it. But after I mentioned prize picks here, I'll get into some ways that they could win this game. All right. So let's start here, though. We do want to mention our sponsor, Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. Get that initial deposit matched up to $100. Of course, if you put down 100, they'll give you 100. You put down 20, they'll give you 20. I actually won last night. I've had a bad run, but that's a good thing with Prize Picks. You can always get out of it. So go to prizepicks.com. Use the code 5FIVE. You can match players from different teams, different sports. You want to play NBA tonight? You certainly can. We'll see what Bam and Tyler do as they come back to South Florida after the 2-3 road trip. Again, use the code 5, get that initial deposit matched up to $100. All right, so how could they win this game? Understanding that you shouldn't expect them to win this game because it's the DNA of this franchise that they don't win this game. And I tried to be more positive here because I'll be honest, okay? I'm a little biased because this time around I like the coach and the quarterback. I do. I just like them personally. That's it. I respect their stories and I respect what they're trying to accomplish. And I think they're earnestly trying to do the right things on a consistent basis. And I like this team, honestly. I feel like we've seen the personalities in Hard Knocks, and I think that's who they are. Um, I think mostly they're a likable group. Some Dolphin groups have not been. Okay. So do I have a personal bias that's positive towards this team? Probably. Probably. Do I want Tua to succeed? Yes, because I think he's gotten a lot of unfair BS from a whole bunch of different corners. But again, when you don't come through, then what happens is the narrative is the narrative. It's kind of like what McDaniel said last night about not beating good teams. He's like, until we change it, that's the narrative. Now they thought they changed it in the Dallas game, but the two Bills games and obviously the Baltimore game, Kansas City, we're going to talk about in a second. Philadelphia, that's where they're at. Okay, and so like he said, it's reality until it's not. But here's how they can win this game. Okay, Kansas City has no threats on the outside. They just don't. Like I feel like we're stuck in this place, and I feel like betting wise we are too with KC. Where again you start. It's sort of like with college programs where like you think of a program is going to do a certain thing because they did it before, but then you look at the personnel and the results, and it's not the same. And I feel like that's where we are with the Chiefs right now. Like, there's no reason to be scared of that offense at all. Like, I understand how good Mahomes is. I get it. But, I mean, and Pacheco's pretty good, but, like, the outside has been awful. And Kelsey, for all the Taylor Swift talk, I mean, he didn't get to 1,000 yards this year. He's not I don't even know that he's the tight end right now that Kincaid is that we saw last night. Like I feel like where Laporta is in Detroit before he got hurt yesterday. I don't think there's anything to be afraid of on the Kansas City offense. Now except Mahomes, which I get. But again, if Mahomes is not supplemented, we talk about things that need to be perfect for Tua. But they don't need to be perfect for a guy like Mahomes or Allen, but there needs to be something there for him to work with. And this year there hasn't been. I think the low quality of the Chiefs receivers has been shown by how inconsistent Mahomes has been and that he hasn't been in MVP conversations this year. I mean, even Tua has been at certain stages. Jalen Hurts was at certain stages. Dak certainly has been. And not Lamar. We haven't really heard Mahomes for MVP in any sense because the numbers haven't been there. The overall moments haven't been there. The performances haven't been there. again, because of who they've surrounded him with. I don't think he's gotten dramatically worse. I just don't think they've given him an opportunity to be dramatically better or even himself this season. So I think that the Dolphin defense, and I think the difference we've seen between the defense and the offense as the season has gone on, is that the defense, for all of the criticisms of them very early in the year, particularly before Ramsey got healthy, the defense has shown the ability to scrape it together for the most part when things are against them. We saw it even last night, backed up against their own end zone. They have done enough in those situations, even as they've lost players who are core players. I'm not an Xavier Howard fan at this stage of his career, but he's certainly better than what they lined up yesterday. In Eli Apple, interception aside, he made 4 plays that you're like, what the hell are you doing? Okay. And it makes you wonder why Cam Smith can't get on the field and what's wrong with him at this stage. Because usually I'm like, okay, give the guy a year or 2 to develop. But like, if that's your alternative, they must be Vic either doesn't like Cam Smith or somebody doesn't like what they're seeing in practice or something, because you can't keep trotting Eli Apple out there. But with that being said, for the most part, the defense has overcome. They've overcome Jalen Phillips' injury. Jalen Phillips at one stage of the season was their most dynamic defensive player. Okay. And now Chubb. And now we'll see with Van Ginkel that he's got the foot injury, which even though Drew, his agent, said that Rosenhaus said that, the MRI or the X-ray was okay. They'll see how it is today. These are dramatic injuries to core players on their defense. They were without Jerome Baker for 4 weeks, and we saw the impact that he made yesterday. So the defense has figured out a way when they don't have everything going for them to still put them, with the exception of Baltimore. The offense is not. The offense seems to need everything to be perfect, and that's not just Tua. It's also Hill and it's McDaniel. And so if I'm going to have any confidence in them going up and getting a win, it's this. They're getting bodies back on the offense. Okay. Mostert's going to be back. Waddle's going to be back. I asked McDaniel about it yesterday. He said both of them were close, but they were both vulnerable to further injury. We can have another conversation about whether or not they've babied the players too much this year. But if they're going to have both of them out there, we obviously see Devon Achane's for real. Okay. It's just a question of getting him the damn ball. And Jeff Wilson's a good player. I like the yardage that he got yesterday. He got everything that was out there for him to get, particularly in the first half. And obviously, you hope that Hill plays in his old stadium, will play the way that he plays against bad teams, because Tyreek Hill has that same thing that Tua has. Okay. This comes in for Cap for Life. Worst collapse in franchise history. The stadium was full of red or blue. Embarrassing, bro. I don't even want to see what the elbow room looks like right now. I'll just be honest, Cap. They're all in my city right now. All the Bills fans. They won't go to Miami for some reason. They're all here, down the street from me, right off Las Olas. And now at least they're going home, because they would have stayed here the whole week. But here's the thing, okay? I think that with the players coming back, that McDaniel will have a good plan for KC. He's seen them once already. They could have won that game. Honestly, Tyreek kind of killed that game, okay, with that play before halftime. So I think that they're going to be competitive in this game. And the defense has found a way to string it together, even with all these guys going out. My concern with them now switches from the physical, can they compete with KC? Because I don't think KC's as good this year as they've been. My thing is the mental, emotional thing. And I think that's real. Because here's what I think, and then we'll close. And we appreciate everybody joining today. And again, check out all the content during the week. And Louis Sung's going to have a bunch of Fins Nation episodes. We'll lead you up to Saturday night. In that locker room yesterday, they all said the right things. Okay. I mean, they say, we got to get Alec Ingold, who has become kind of a spokesman for this team, and others, Armstead, etc. Look, we got to study this. We're going to put it to bed. We're going to get ready. We still got a playoff game. Everything's out in front of us. I get it. The tone's different, though. This team was kind of a front-running team all year. We contributed to that because, again, like I said, I like this group. I like this team. Others in the media do also, okay? They just like dealing with a coach like McDaniel after having, like, if you're a media member and you're dealing with McDaniel as opposed to dealing with Flores, who was dour, or dealing with Philbin, who was kind of a goofball, or Gase, who was, kind of a narcissist, never took blame for anything, okay? Like, dealing with McDaniel, who's like seems to be like a real human being, okay, is pleasurable, okay, for people in the media. And so I think what's happened here, and the same for Tua, who's kind of come out of his shell this year with the media. And so I think what's happened here is everybody's in the media, the primary people have given them the benefit of the doubt. And I think have pumped them up, okay? And then you have Hard Knocks, which does the same, which makes them into sort of mini celebrities on that platform. And, greatest offense of all time, greatest show on turf 2, or greatest show on surf, if you want to call it, whatever. It's been a front running group the whole year, even though they've been losing to these bad teams. It's kind of been like, okay, they're this talented, this explosive. Then you get Jalen Ramsey back, all these things. You got Vic Fangio in here, and there was an expectation, and they're going to win the division. Now, I mean, we all thought they were going to win the division, right? And now they didn't. And so I think this is really, we talk about the Baltimore game. Now they've been slapped in the face. Now they've been slapped in the face because they did not achieve what the expectation was this year, which was to end Buffalo's hold on them and on the division. They didn't accomplish it. It was right there for them. It's been right there for them. They couldn't do it. And I just wonder, with what now they've got Monday through Friday to prepare for this game, okay? They know the weather situation they're going into. They know the quarterback that they're facing, even if that offense is not what it was. I just wonder if psychologically they're going to be able to get themselves back to the mode of now being underdogs and to go up there and to get a game like this. I have my doubts. They are not, and I'll finish here, and I know everybody says I compare everything to the Heat, but I'm going to go here just at the very end of this, okay? They're not built like the Heat. They're not. And I was talking to some fellow friend reporters who cover both teams yesterday. We were getting into this a little bit. The Heat don't disappoint like this. Like, they'll have a season that's disappointing and you kind of know it and all the rest of this, but they don't do this. Like they go in as a play-in team last year and they overachieve. The Heat will ultimately give you more than you think they should give you, right? Maybe it's Spoelstra, I don't know, okay? But it has been this way for years and years and years. They don't overpromise and underdeliver. The Heat don't do that. The only time that they did that, I think you could say, was the first year of the Big Three, right? But they got to the finals before that happened, and that was on one person, LeBron, for not performing at the level that he's always performed at. The Dolphins do this all the time. Overpromise, underdeliver. Go all the way back to, and I know it's different people, different, but it's the same. It just seems to be the same karma. To go back to them being on the cover of Sports Illustrated when they signed Dante Culpepper, okay, because they were supposed to go to the Super Bowl. It's been this overpromise, underdeliver for now more than a quarter century. And that karma, it's a different building than they were in all those years in Davie, okay? But it still seems to be around them. And I just wonder if they can shake that. They're all on social media. They're following what the fans are saying. The fans are defeatist as hell. I don't know if they can play the underdog role and steal something like the Heat went up and stole Game 7 in Boston last year. So we'll see. But I would hammer the Chiefs -3, unfortunately. Anyway, check out the rest of the content here on the channel. I've spoken 20 minutes, and that's probably long enough. I'm Ethan Skolnick, and follow me, Ethan J. Skolnick, and at 5 Reasons Sports. They got to get their heads right first. Body's starting to come back here, Mostert, Waddle, but that locker room gave me pause last night from thinking that they're going to make something of this next week. Have a good one, everybody.